Hi guys, it's Ashlyn Therese and welcome to my YouTube channel. As a Catholic convert, I get a lot of questions. Like a lot. Like so many that I made this whole YouTube channel just to make a video so I could respond to all of the questions that I get. So without further ado, let's get into it. What was the most significant moment guiding you to join the Catholic Church? Well, my story is kind of unique because I was an atheist. I wasn't really raised Christian. I was kind of raised in a secular household. So my push to join the Catholic Church didn't come until after I had converted to Christianity and was doing a lot of research on different denominations because I didn't even really know denominations existed growing up because I wasn't raised in Christian circles or religious circles at all. So it was all a new world to me. And I decided, well, if all of these denominations teach different things, which are sometimes mutually exclusive, very often mutually exclusive, then I need to do research and discover which one of them is right. So this led me down a bunch of rabbit holes of going online and joining online communities and reading stuff, reading everything that I could find on different subjects like the early church fathers and the Eucharist and baptism and justification, all of the key things that people are talking about all the time in relation to Catholicism versus Protestantism. And I realized one day that if I wanted to be in line with what the early church taught, then I had to be of the faith of the early Christians, which is Catholicism. And the main guiding factor, belief, really fell in love with and thought was really important was the Eucharist. So the Eucharist is really what led me to the Catholic Church because I realized if I wanted to have that intimacy and closeness with Christ, then I needed to be in his church and I needed the Eucharist. When did Catholicism truly become important to you? So I was pretty convinced of Catholicism within 3 or 4 months of studying it. And I'm a very truth oriented person, right? So if I just truly have a conviction in my heart that something is true, then I think that that is what should be believed, right? So even if I had done all my research and I found out Protestantism was true, or I found out that Orthodoxy was true, or Islam was true, I would become a Muslim if I thought that Islam was true. But I just don't, right? um, so I became a Catholic just because it's true. So, pretty immediately, when I realized that this was something that I had been missing out on my whole life, I just knew I had to have it. What is your favorite thing about Catholicism? I think my favorite thing about Catholicism is the universality. I can go anywhere and I can go to a Catholic Mass, and the same readings are going to be read at every Catholic Mass throughout the world. And then, when I meet somebody who's like a practicing Catholic, we just have so much in common, right? And I can find other believers everywhere, and we're all unified, and we aren't going to have like disputes on really basic topics if they are listening to the magisterium, right? I just love that aspect of Catholicism, the unity of doctrine and the unity of fellowship. I think that that's really nice. Are there different denominations of Catholicism or Catholic interpretations? So, this is a really good question, and there are different rites of Catholicism. So, sometimes you'll hear about the Eastern Rite or the Latin Rite, um, what have you, right? There are different rites, but the important thing to note is that every rite follows the magisterium. No rite in the Catholic Church can have like disagreements with the dogmas of the Catholic Church. And we are bound to listen to the Church on ordinary and universal and extraordinary magisterial teachings. So that's really important to note. And there are also different schools of thought because some things aren't necessarily defined by the magisterium. There are some things that are open to interpretation or that may be defined in the future but are not defined right now. And that's where you'll get different schools of thought. So, like Duns Scotus and Thomas Aquinas, a lot of people follow those two different schools of thought. Thomism or Scotism. Scotism. It is Scotism. That just sounds really weird. So in that sense, yes, but they cannot disagree on like the big money topics, right? Like the perpetual virginity or like, God forbid, the resurrection. Like, you can't disagree on certain things, of course. If someone asked you, why should I convert? How would you answer? Well, of course, this is just going to be variable depending on that person's life circumstances and what they know and what they've been through and their psychology and what have you. But I think that my most basic answer would be because you should follow whatever is true, and the Catholic Church is true. And that's the basic answer that I give people most of the time when they ask this question. Like I said before, I just think that the truth is so important, and Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. And I think that it's so important to have the truth, right? And we shouldn't fall into this philosophy of liberalism where we can just believe whatever we want and it's all chill, man. Like, as long as we love Jesus, like hippie stuff. Some people fall into that, and while loving each other is very important, of course, it's also important to have certain vital theological questions correct. Like, we shouldn't just accept being wrong about certain things. We should want to get these things right, and it's important. And Jesus clearly thought it was important because he founded a church so that these things could be passed on through tradition. And so that's why you should convert. What are your thoughts on Protestant Christians' music? I really don't like it. I used to kind of listen to it back when I had my short Protestant phase, but it always felt very performative and kind of fake to me, low key. Like, I know that they oftentimes are good Christians, and they are trying their best and they're trying to worship God through music, and all that stuff is commendable. But at the same time, it's just not my taste at all. And I could never get down when I went to Protestant services when I was still discovering what denomination I wanted to follow. I could never get down with it gives me the ick when people put their hands up during the Our Father. So this, I couldn't do that. I just can't do it. What to do when we fall? This is a great question because we fall all the time. We are flawed people, right? So when we fall, the most important thing isn't whether or not you fell, it's how fast you get back up, right? Because God isn't really expecting us to be super perfect and never mess up. Like, he knows our hearts, he knows everything about us, right? So when we mess up, he knows that too. And does he think it's better when we sit and we hide in shame or when we run back to him, right? Saint Therese, my confirmation saint over there, she says that even if she had committed the most sins in the world and the most heinous sins of anybody ever, and she was the greatest sinner, she would still instantly run to the mercy of God. And I like to think of that when I mess up and I have to go to confession and I'm like, oh man, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just get it right? That's just discouragement. And honestly, that's from Satan, man. You just have to get back up and you have to go to confession, pray, think about what led you to that situation and try to do better. And that's what's important, is that you do better. Favorite book in the Bible and why? Well, I have a few. I think one of my favorites is Ecclesiastes, and it's because I've always been kind of emo. I've been kind of a doomer all my life, right? No, it just it speaks to something really true in my life that I've noticed, and it's just how all things are constantly passing away, and how we need to focus on what's eternal, because all is vanity, right? Toil under the sun. So that's my favorite book of the Bible, I think. How do you choose your confirmation saint? This is a great question. My confirmation saint, like I mentioned, is Saint Therese of Lisieux. And I think that I chose her because her spirituality was something that I really wanted to imitate, the little way. I love how she tried to make holiness accessible for all people, right? In her time, there was a heresy called Jansenism that was really prominent, and it really emphasized needing to like really be harsh on yourself to be saved. And Saint Therese saw this and she was like, no, guys, we don't really need to like be lashing ourselves all the time and whatever. Like God loves us, and we can be holy without that. We can be holy through the small things that we do, and we can offer little things to save souls. And God looks at us and he is our father, and we're like his little children. And I just love her emphasis on small things with great love. And she talks about how love is eternal, and she wants to be love in the heart of the church, and that's her vocation. And I think that that's so, so beautiful. That is literally my favorite line quote from anything ever. She says, "My vocation is love. I will be the beating heart of love in the church." And she is, truly. I love Saint Therese. I can't. Okay. But more practical advice, I suppose. Just look into the lives of different saints that interest you, that you hear of. Do research about what different saints are the patron saints of. Like if you play soccer, maybe you'll find the patron saint of soccer. I don't know. Um, and just find somebody who has similar struggles to you. I think that's a really important one, because that's something that drew me to Saint Therese as well. Is she struggled a lot with like anxiety and emotionality and things like that, and I super relate to that. So just finding somebody who became holy despite having the same struggles as you can be really encouraging. So that's what I think you should do. Have you ever attended the TLM, and what is your opinion? I have attended the TLM multiple times at this point. I don't know exactly how many times, but it's been at least a few times. And my opinion is that it's really beautiful. I haven't been enough to like know what's going on, and I don't really have a missile. So I don't really know what's going on at the TLM, but I do know that I like the incense. Um, I love when they use incense in the Novus Ordo. I get so excited. So I love the incense, and I love the focus on the Eucharist. It's just something that I have to sit with more, I think, before I give like a super in-depth opinion on it. But I do love it. I love the TLM. I love the Novus Ordo. My favorite is the Novus Ordo with Latin parts. That's my favorite. How did you prepare for confirmation as a convert? Okay, so I was baptized, confirmed, and received First Communion all on the Easter Vigil because I had not been baptized before, obviously, because you can only be baptized once. So, leading up to that day was a lot. So, my OCIA group was really lovely, and so we were meeting up a lot when confirmation was coming up. And I was meeting with my confirmation sponsor, and we were talking all about how it was going. And I was just trying to pray a lot and prepare my heart to receive a new heart, to be born again. And that was really beautiful and exciting for me because of a lot of things that I've gone through in my life. It was so amazing to know that it was like opening a new door, like a new phase of my life. It was finding hope. There was so much hope that day. And that was just something I really looked forward to. I actually have a writing on my Substack where I talk all about my conversion, and it was the week of my baptism that I wrote it. So if you want more of my like super in-depth thoughts, maybe you could read that. But a lot of prayer for sure, and praying to my confirmation saint, Saint Therese, was very important for me too. And I just felt so close to her when they the cross on my head and they called me her name. It was amazing. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really loved answering your guys' questions, and I hope to do it again soon in the future. God bless you guys. Thanks so much. Bye.